You need a graphing calculator today, okay? Got to have one of those in the back or your phone or one on. You're going to have to use those for tests and quizzes unless you have an 84 of your own. All right. So did I start recording? Yes, I did. We're talking about linear regressions today. So when we have our learning target is to be able to use our calculator to come up with a linear model, which is going to be called a linear regression. Find the correlation coefficient and kind of know what it's telling us. And then use our model to predict values. So in many situations, we know enough data to try to construct a mathematical model, okay? Today, we're going to talk about linear models. This is an equation of some kind, ours are going to be lines, to model the relationship that they're showing and then to try to make predictions of further data. Correlation of a line indicates how closely the data fits to our model. Our calculator will give us the correlation coefficient, which is R. Okay, so that's the first thing you got to know today is when I ask for the correlation coefficient on a quiz, you're looking for the R value, and the calculator is going to give it to you. All right, our calculator, you can turn the R value on two different ways. If you have a newer calculator, it's super easy. You just go to Mode. And yours may or may not look like this, but you want this Stat Diagnostics turned on. If it's not, you scroll down over onto the On and hit Enter. Stat Diagnostics on. If you have an older calculator, ready? It's second and then 0 to get to the catalog. Second 0 is a catalog of every feature the calculator has. You want to turn the diagnostics on so you can scroll down to the D's until you find one. Be very careful that it says diagnostic on, not off, okay? Diagnostic on. And then you're going to hit enter and enter one more time, and it's going to say done, as in it turned it on. That's it. Until we're ready to use it. Is that graphing one? Can I see it? What model is it? Nope, you got to have one of those. It's got to be at 80 something so that you can plug in the equation of a graph. Anybody else got a question about the calculator they're using? Elena, do you have one then? Okay. Yeah, the 35s won't work for this, guys. Everybody good? All right. Now, back to, so correlation. What does this correlation coefficient thing that we're talking about even tell us? Well, this is a perfectly correlated, correlation coefficient is somewhere between -1 and 1. It actually is the positive or negativeness of it relates to the slope. A +1 would mean a perfectly linear positive slope of our data. Okay, 9 is a close. Here it's kind of all over the place. That says it's a +5. This is a -5 because the slope of this is going down. -0.9, -1. Okay, I am not going to ask you a question on a quiz to predict by looking at a picture, but it's kind of interesting. It's always the same sign as the slope. Okay, so when this R is negative, it means the slope of the line is negative. As X increases, yeah, okay, I'm not going to read all that to you. So here are some more. This is a -1, a -0.94, a 0.08, almost 0 because it's almost no correlation. Okay. All right. Oh, this says directions for getting R, but we already did that. Does everybody have their diagnostics turned on, they think? So this will be in Google Classroom. If you get home tonight and you can't, you're doing the homework and the R value isn't showing up, this slide would help you figure out how to turn that on. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the stat button, which is the red button here on this screen or here. Now if I hit it, it's red. Do you see it? Everybody find that stat button? Okay, then we are going to enter a list of values. So I want you to hit enter because we're going to edit the list. So it's just choice 1, so you can hit enter. Now, how many of you, does anyone not see a list 1 and list 2 in their calculator? We need an L1 and L2 is where we're going to store our data. Okay. We're going to type numbers in here. So to get rid of these numbers that are already in there, please listen. Don't try anything until you're going to go up onto this and then you're going to hit clear enter. Do not hit delete. If you delete, you will delete the entire list. So go over to where you want to be, up onto the name, clear enter. You are clearing out list 1 and list 2. Up onto the title, clear enter to clear a list of data out. You can also just type over it, but be very careful because if, for example, the last one had 5 and you only have 3 to put in, it's going to leave those other 2 in there. Does that make sense? So it's best to always clear out the list. Okay. So it says here, just so you understand how to follow the directions here later if you need to, it says we will enter our data using stat and choice 1 edit. We will put our data in list 1 and list 2. That will save us time later because the defaults are list 1 and list 2. Use the up arrow to go to the name of the list, either 1 or 2, and then hit clear enter. Do not use delete. Everybody good? Okay. This is onto what we're going to actually enter. It says we often, that should say use, that's a typo, a shortened version of years. For example, we're going to use years since 2000 for this list. So if we're going to use years since 2000, let's write down right now so we don't get confused later. This is going to be 12 years, 14, then what? 16, 18, and 20. That was an easy one because it's just years since 2000. If it had been years since 1985 or something, we would have had to subtract 1985 from each of those, okay? So we are not actually going to type the years in. We are going to put this, years since 2000, and that is going to be our list 1 data in a second here. We are analyzing data about Facebook. The first example we're going to do is about sales revenue. So we are going to put this number in list 2. So in list 1, it says, you're going to go to your calculator and your stat enter to get here. And then you're going to put in, I already forgot, did it start with 12? Okay. 12, and then you hit enter to go down to the next item. 14, enter. 16, enter. 18 and 20. Did I get them in right? Okay. Now, this is always a struggle for me because I can't see the data. Okay. Then you arrow to the right so that you're in list 2. And you have to be very careful that these match up because these are like ordered pairs, okay? So if you forgot the 5, you can't go back and put it at the bottom of the list. It's got to be across from the 12. But you're going to now go ahead and enter 5, 12, 28, 56, and 86. And always take a second to proofread your list because it will totally mess you up if you messed one up like I did right here. That one should be 12, I think. 5, 12, 28, 56, 86. Okay. Because as soon as you get, you're going to raise your hand in a few minutes and say, I didn't get those numbers, Ms. Hoffbar. It's going to be probably because you did a typo here. So everybody got them in okay? All right. Then we're going to use these steps underneath here. It says you're going to find the regression equation, you're going to go stat, right arrow, to calculate, which is choice 4. And under the calculate menu, you're going to pick choice 4. So let me show you on the calculator here. Stat key again. But we're actually going to calculate something, so we're going to arrow to the right. And we are going to use choice 4. If you're in AP Stats, they always choose 8, and it's fine. It doesn't really matter which one you use. It's just what the A and the B are going to represent. They just switch it on that one. So I'm choosing 4. I'm going to type a 4, but you can also just go down to the 4 and hit enter. Okay. Now, if you have a newer calculator, this is the screen you get. This is called the Stats Wizard, and it helps you know what to type in. If you do not have a newer calculator, you have to type some things in by hand. Now, as long as you have put your data in list 1 and list 2, these should be defaulted to list 1 and list 2, and you don't have to do anything. You want the frequency list to be empty, and we want to store this equation. Now, this is where students get really confused, and it's tricky. You can actually do this without storing, but I would like you to learn to store, because we're going to do a lot of regressions over the course of the year. So it's under the VARS key. Do you see right underneath your arrows? It says VARS. We want to put a Y variable in there, so we have to go to VARS. Now, any ideas where we'd go from there? What did I just say? We want to put a Y variable, so we're going to arrow to the right, to the Y VARS. Now we are in function mode and we're dealing with functions. All this other garbage is stuff we'll do later in the year, very briefly for like a week. So we're going to hit enter because we want to stay in function. Now you can store it in any one of these. I'm just going to store mine in Y1. And it will now say store regression equation Y1. We're going to arrow down and hit calculate. Now, who has a calculator that didn't have that information on the screen for you? Okay. Then what you need to do, let me see, I think I can make mine look more like yours. I'm not positive. So when you go stats, right arrow, 4, you just get this, right? Okay, you're in luck because actually you don't have to type, you used to have to type a whole bunch of stuff, but we're just going to assume you put it in list 1 and list 2. Did you? Yes? So all you need to put here is the Y1 and then hit enter. So right behind that, you're going to put VARS. Okay, do you need me to go back? Start over? So it was stat, right arrow, choice 4. Are you like this? Okay. Then it's VARS key right down here next to clear. And then arrow to the right to get a Y variable. And then hit enter twice. Basically, it's enter to get into function and enter to store in Y1. So then this is what you want it to say. And you hit enter and it should come up like everybody else's did. Okay. Who's not getting these numbers or who's not getting this screen to work at all? Okay, then your diagnostics are not turned on. So you've got to go through that step again. Second catalog, which is second 0. Go down to diagnostics on and hit enter twice. And someone help her if she needs help. And who else? Anybody else doesn't have R? Okay, second 0. Scroll down until it says diagnostic on, and then hit enter twice. And all that's going to do is say diagnostics on, and then you would have to go back and repeat the steps we just did, which were stat, arrow to the right, choice 4, enter. Now, I'm going to show you a couple things you don't have to do on the homework. I did put these in a box underneath the calculator on your notes. You could look at the data. So you could do second Y equals. If you want to try this, you can. You don't have to. Second Y equals. Hit enter to turn plot 1 on. Make sure it is this scatter plot, the first choice here, and that it says list 1 and list 2. The rest of this really doesn't matter whether you have whatever mark you use or if you have a color one or not. Then you would do a zoom stat, which is zoom those are at the top. Y equals zoom right up here. And then 9 for zoom stat. Now you should have both if you turned all this on, you would have the equation and the dots from the data. Okay? Yes. Yep. Second Y equals, enter. Enter again to turn it on. And then you want to pick this first type. If it's on a different one, just scroll till it's on that first one there. And then it should say list 1 and list 2. If it doesn't, you want to get those, and they are in the blue down here, so we do second 1 and second 2 to get those. Do you have list 1 and list 2? Then it does, as long as you have something in there, you can just go to zoom now. As long as you turn it on, and then hit a 9 for zoom stat. Okay, you don't have to look at the data. I did not ask you to draw a sketch or anything on the quiz. All right, let's go back to our home screen. So I'm going to do second and then mode to quit. Does everybody know where quit is? Second mode. Mine is gone. Is yours gone? I'm just going to hit enter again. You can, if it was the last thing you did, you should be able to hit enter again and it'll come back up. Anybody not get it? Does anybody have different numbers? Okay, it's not showing up for you. That's fine. It would be stat, right arrow, down to 4, and you actually do. So it said line of regression, you good? Okay, and then you actually don't have to put the Y variable in again if you don't want. Just go ahead and down to calculate and hit enter. All right, I'm going to take a screenshot of this over, oh, just kidding, what happened? Over here so that we can talk about it. Okay, so here where's all the directions. So when you need to go back and read, this is how you find the variable, the Y variable, all that stuff, okay? Anybody have a question? Yes. Show me. All right, I need to move this to the next page, I think. Stat right arrow, choice 4. It says list 2, that's why. It needs to be list 1 and then list 2 and no frequency list, okay? Now, I think it'll stay that and you won't have to keep retyping that, but that was the issue. Now you should be good. Anybody else? And again, this is where if you wanted to see the data, this is how you turn that on, okay? And that's what the screen would look like. I just included that in these notes. All right, so we're on this, going to fill in the worksheet now. Our model, right here it says y equals ax plus b. So we're going to write y equals, but what is our a value that we're going to write, guys? 10.3. And then we're, again, it's this equation, ax, oh, sorry, I wrote right over the top of it, ax plus b. So it's 10.3x plus our b value is actually negative, right? So you write plus a negative or minus 127.4. Now, if it didn't come out nice, I would tell you how many places I wanted you to round to. This one only comes out to the nearest tenth. The r is 0.97 or 0.972. Sometimes I use more places for the r value, quite a few, because it makes a big difference. But it means it's a good fit, okay? I did not ask what does the r value mean. And you could also say it has a positive slope, okay? It's a good fit because it's like over 0.95 or something, so it's a good fit. Interpret the slope for this model. Guys, this is just important for that you understand it's change in y over change in x. So if I go back here, it's change in sales revenue in billions per year. Does everybody get that? It's change in Y per change in X. So where were we? I'm going to say increase because it's positive. That's supposed to be an I. In sales revenue. Oh, can you read that? Per year. Oh my gosh. Can't write. And it was a 10.3, right? So it was $10.3 billion. You should probably write billion somewhere. $10.3 billion increase in sales revenue per year. I should have written that better. I don't know, but you could have said Facebook sale revenue is increasing $10.3 billion per year. As long as you get some of that stuff in there, I'm going to be fine with it. All right, use this model to predict 2022. This is where that Y1 matters. If you put it and stored it in Y1, you can now scroll down to see all the values. If you go second graph will get you to the table. Second graph. All right, my table is set up really wonky. Is anybody else's X values counting by something weird? Usually it's just counting by ones. We want to scroll down to 22 years past 2000. And what is our estimate for 22 years? Is everybody finding that? Anybody is not working? If you do have nothing in that table, okay, that means you did not store the equation when we went stat. Is yours showing when you went to 4 here, did you just get this? Or did you get the little stat? Okay. Let me put it back in the mode. So stat, right arrow, 4, you had this? Stat, right arrow, 4. Okay, so it looks like this. Then you need to go down to store regression. And that's where you need to put the Y. And it's vars. Arrow to the right. Enter, enter. And then enter 2 more times till it comes up. And now if you looked at, if you went to Y equals, it would have an equation stored in there. And so when you go to the table, it should have values. Yes. Can I see? All right, so we're going to write down what we got at year 22. Now it'll work. But it started at something weird. Let me do that for you. If you scroll to 22. Yep. Anybody else have a weird setting going on for them? So right here, we're going to put 99.2 billion. Is that what we end up with? All right, so now we're going to do 2 more examples, and we're going to see how we can try this on our own. We're going to go back, and we're going to do number 2, which means we're not going to put in sales revenue. We don't have to change list 1 this time because we're still using Facebook data. We're going to into list 2, change the numbers to this. So I'm going to go stat, enter to get to the list. And my list 2, I can either override or I could go up onto it and do clear, enter to get rid of those numbers. Okay. Stat, enter, up arrow, clear, enter to get rid of those. Now you're going to put in 0.03. Make sure you put that 0.03. 2.93. These are a little bit tricky, so make sure you get them in right. I was careful on the quiz to not make, we used to have students have to enter like 20 pieces of data, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. Because everybody make a typo if you put that many in. Yes. Stat enter. Okay, I think I have mine in right. How's everybody doing? Okay, what do we do next to calculate the equation? Anybody, look at your notes if you need to. Yep, stat, calculate, or arrow to the right. Choice 4. Now, I would like you to store this again, so it's good practice, and we're going to need the equation to make a prediction. If either kind, you need to put an L1. For us, my screen, you need to go down to store regression before you put the L1, or the Y1. Did I say L? Y1. Okay, how do we get to the Y? Vars over, enter, enter. Now, there's a shortcut, and I can show you on the last example if you have this exact fancy calculator, okay? We're going to go calculate. Did everybody get these numbers? Anybody stuck? All right, so what are we going to write down for our linear model? Y equals, anybody? Yep, the A value, I'm going to round to 8.6. How's that? These decimals were in one or two places, so I'm going to go 3.86. You can put more or less at this point today. That's not my priority. And then plus B, we're writing this equation, remember. So plus B, but our B value is actually negative. So 49.12, if I round to two places. Okay, interpret the slope. Can anybody do that for me? What is our Y and what is our X? Our slope was 3.86, and it is, the Y's are labeled in billions of dollars per X. What were our X's? Years. And we could say it was net income increasing that much. Now, use this model to predict for 2022. If you saved it, you can go back to the table, which is second graph, and scroll to 2022 again, or year 22. If you didn't save it, if you didn't figure out that Y1 thing, you could also go back to your home screen and just put a 22 in here, and you would get close. The reason we save it is because it saves all the decimal places, and some of them are really long decimals, okay? So as long as you're close on your answer, I would be okay. But you could put the 22 in here by hand if you wanted to. So the calculator put the 22 in for us. Second graph, 22, 36.145 or something, 36.1. I'm just going to go with. And that's $36.1 billion. All right, there's a couple ways we could do this last part. It says predict when the income will hit 40 billion. Anybody tell me a way they could think of? Yeah. Say one more time. Yes, you could go down and see when did it go past 40 on your list. Okay. The other way you could do it, and I'm going to just write this down so that it makes sense to you. I don't care if you actually do it this way. But if you would write that down, you're putting the 40 in for the y, so you could solve backwards. Does that make sense? Okay, and if you solved backwards, solve that equation, you would get, looks like around 23, right? And what does that mean for what year? Yeah, during 2023 sometime. Did anybody solve that with a calculator? I don't have a calculator hand, obviously, for this one, but okay. All right. I would love it if we could do this last example really fast because I want to answer a question and I'm going to run out of time. All right, so we're going to do years since 1900. So what are we going to put in for list one? There's only 4 data points. List one is going to be 40, 55, 70, and 90. Is everybody getting that? We're subtracting this 1900 off. Anybody lost on that part? All right, and then list 2 are these decimals for the price of eggs. So stat, enter, up onto the title, clear, enter. Don't use delete. I already forgot. All right. Everybody good? So stat, right arrow, choice 4. Some of you already passed this. Down to store, it's vars, arrow to the right, enter, enter. Enter to calculate. This is what I got. Funky numbers, right? Anybody having trouble? All right, so the equation would be 0.0197 or 0.02. Let's round to 0.02. X. And then b is negative again, and it's 0.55 if we round to 2 places. Describe the correlation. What is the correlation coefficient? R equals 0.98, so it is a good fit. It will actually on the quiz ask you for the R value. By the way, if you wanted to see this new stored equation and its graph, you would just do zoom 9 and it would show you, it would rechange the window to the new data as long as you had stored it, okay? What does the slope mean and intercept? Well, the slope means it's increasing, the cost is increasing 2 cents. So $0.02, sorry, per year. And the negative value back here for the intercept would mean the price would have been negative starting in 1900. I'm just going to skip that. I'm not going to ask you about the intercept on the quiz anyway. Use this model to predict the cost of eggs in 1950. So if you stored it, 2050, thank you. 2050 is how long? 150 years? After 1900? So X equals 150. That's a lot of scrolling. I think I'm going to do it by hand instead. 0.02, 150. minus 0.55. So I'm just going to go to the home screen. So I'm going to go second quit and then type that in. It was 0.02 times, what was it? I forgot, 50 years? 150. And then minus 0.55, did I remember correctly? And I got 245. Did anyone else get 245? If you scrolled all the way down to 150, did you get close? 241, okay. What did I get, 245? Yeah, and your answer of 241 is a more exact according to our model, but it's not gonna make a difference to me. When would they be greater than $3? You could keep scrolling or you could work backwards. 3 equals 0.02x minus 0.55. If I added that over here, I'd have 3.55 divided by 0.02. Can someone do that real fast for me? So about 176 years after 1900, which would be 2076. Did I do that right? I think so. I don't ask that question on the quiz anyway. I do ask you to plug a number in, but not to work backwards. All right, questions. How much time do I have? It's 10:10. 6 minutes. What can I help with? Oh, let me stop the recording. So the homework that goes with this lesson is for you to simply do 4, 6, 7, and 8 on worksheet 5. And I believe only 6, 7, and 8 are the lists you have to enter, okay? Anybody think it might be a really good idea to do this during advisory today or tonight when you get home or in lunch? Because are you going to forget how we did this by the time you wait till Sunday night? And yeah. Did everybody pick up the review for the quiz? Okay, the quiz review is, I'm going to go over questions on Monday. Okay, Monday is review for quiz. So the review sheet is back there. Okay, stopping the